Hey Siri, what do you think of Canada?
I really couldn't say.
No surprise there, because the HomePod isn't even available in Canada yet. But I've got good news for Apple fans. If you want to smuggle this across the border and start using it in Canada today, it does work as long as you're willing to sacrifice some of the location-based services. But really, the HomePod is all about playing music from a great sounding speaker, and that's what we'll be talking about today. If you don't get busted for bootlegging the Apple HomePod across the border, setting it up is no problem. Plug it in and follow the normal instructions to set it up using an iPhone or an iPad. Just bring your device close to the HomePod and it will detect its presence and begin setup automatically. But not all of HomePod's features seem to work in Canada. It's sort of hit and miss. I can get local weather reports just fine, but I can't keep a grocery list. Siri, add avocados to the grocery list.
Before I can help with personal requests, share my location from this device. It needs to be enabled on an iOS device associated with this HomePod.
I can look up local businesses. Hey Siri, where's the nearest pet food store?
The nearest one I see is Pet Value about 1 mile to your west on Danforth Avenue, which averages 3.5 stars according to Yelp. It's open today from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
But I can't send text messages. So using the HomePod in Canada is pretty much like using it in the US. And since we now live in a smart speaker market where Google Home and Amazon Alexa have both been available for months, the HomePod definitely lives in the shadow of these other devices. And the HomePod can't do quite as much as the other smart speaker counterparts. But what it can do, it does very well. Let's start with using this speaker for music, which is what Apple's main selling point really is. When you plug the HomePod in, it does a scan of its environment and optimizes the sound using beamforming technology. If that sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to you, don't sweat it. Just know that this speaker sounds really fantastic for its size. It's much more powerful and fulsome than the sound coming out of the other smart speakers, but wow, are you paying for it? This thing costs about $500 Canadian. For that much money, you could outfit your home with multiple Alexa or Google Home units. Given such a great speaker, it's too bad there are limited options for actually playing content from it. If you're talking to the speaker, you can ask it to play music from Apple Music. Hey Siri, play the Tragically Hip.
Sure, here's a personalized station of the Tragically.
Or podcasts from Apple Podcasts. Hey Siri, play #trending podcast.
Okay, running podcast coming up.
And yes, I've got my Siri voice set up to be a British man. Now that I'm living with 3 smart assistants, I really need a way to differentiate. Your other option is to use AirPlay to transmit sound from your iPhone, iPad, or MacBook. So anything that you can play on those devices, you can hear on your HomePod. Unfortunately, that's all you can do. You can't use your voice to play music from other music services like Spotify. Hey Siri, play music from Spotify.
I can't play from Spotify.
What? There's no aux input, so you can use them as a speaker from another device. And you can't even connect to it using Bluetooth. I know we're used to Apple's walled garden approach, but this just seems overly limiting. As a smart home hub, the HomePod doesn't really hold a candle to the other smart speakers. It does work well with HomeKit compatible devices, but I find these are more difficult to add than they should be. You have to find this code that's on the physical product. With Google Home or Alexa, I was able to just detect my compatible devices over Wi-Fi and connect my account from a third-party applications. Also, there are just fewer smart home devices that work well with HomeKit. For example, my TP-Link light bulbs, switches, and plugs are not supported. Otherwise, you can do many of the same tasks on Siri as the other devices, at least in theory. You can set one timer at a time, you can set an alarm, and you can check your sports scores. Hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes.
Counting down from 10 minutes.
Hey Siri, set a second timer for 3 minutes.
The timer is already running at 9 minutes and 52 seconds.
But there are many things the HomePod can't do yet. It can't recognize different people's voices. It can't check your calendar for you. You can't make a phone call from your HomePod. And if you use an Apple TV, you can't use the HomePod to start a video. But once you have one playing, you can pause and resume play, or move back and forth in the timeline. Overall, I wouldn't really recommend the HomePod as the right smart speaker to buy. Even if you're a hardcore Apple user, there are more limitations to using the HomePod than rewards. And even if it's the high-quality speaker that you're looking for, you could probably use Alexa or Google Home with a good speaker that you already own. Plus, it's just so expensive. I think one of the best benefits of a smart speaker setup is having multi-room audio. The HomePod does support multi-room audio if you're buying more than one, but now you're really putting a dent in your wallet. Just one last gripe about the HomePod. Since it doesn't integrate with any third-party services, and there's no skills to speak of, I can't program it to say what I want. Hey Siri, wrap this up for me.
What should I rate it?
For more videos on using smart speakers, subscribe to our channel. For ITWC, I'm Brian Jackson.